Get started. We have a group of people here today who have disparate kinds of views about the Columbia River crossing project, but all of us are united in one thing, that we think that the current direction that the governmental systems are going is unwise and needs to be changed. And everybody will speak for themselves. We'll try to keep the speaking very short. I'm Carl Hostica. I'm a Metro councillor. And I'm going to model the behavior by keeping my remarks to about 30 seconds and reading them, so that anybody who wants to have my remarks, I'll give you a copy and then you can quote me based on what I actually said. So my comments are basically under the heading of "Please Stop the Bleeding." At a time when the Oregon Department of Transportation is laying off people, saying they can't maintain the current highway system and have virtually no money for new projects, it's a bad idea to keep spending more than $1 million a month on a project that may never get built. While I believe that the need for better transportation alternatives for crossing the Columbia River is clear, there are serious questions about the current locally preferred alternative. After 6 years of trying, there is as yet no assured money from any source for construction of the Columbia River crossing. The state legislatures in Oregon and Washington have yet to give their approval for this project. The Oregon State Treasurer has noted serious flaws in the projected tolling plan. The Federal Highway Trust Fund is depleted, and Congress shows no signs of passing new authorizations in the near future. With this level of uncertainty, I believe that the Oregon State Legislative Oversight Committee should recommend that spending on the project be suspended and that contingency plans should be examined that meet the needs and have a better chance of being approved. So I think I went more than 30 seconds, didn't I? 45. Sorry. Okay. So the next person on my list is a representative from the Oregon Republican Party. Is that person here? I know Alan Alley had some comments about a month ago, and we were hoping he would be here then. I have Mitch Greenleaf, State Representative from Washington County and Multnomah County.
Carl, thank you very much. Is there a problem in that crossing? Absolutely. Does it need to be solved? Absolutely. Is the current plan going to happen? It cannot possibly happen, and if it can't possibly happen, it's not likely to. There are lots of good alternatives. We've heard about a bridge to nowhere. This is a bridge project to nowhere. We have to stop where we're going. It's a steamroller headed off a cliff, and we need to start dealing with some of the alternatives that actually could work and could help solve the problem, could produce the jobs, could straighten out the traffic difficulties. There are good alternatives. We need to stop the direction we're going, take a look at some of those good alternatives, and move in a different direction. Thank you. Was I 30 seconds?
Good to go. Start putting your timers on. Okay, Bill Turley, candidate from the Vancouver City Council. I'm just going on the list. Bob Stacey, then, candidate for Metro Council and former Executive Director of Thousand Friends of Oregon.
Thank you, Carl. I really want to see improvement of freight and passenger movement across the Columbia and down I-5. But you know, it's not all that I want. And if we have to raise and spend $3.5 billion cash, and when you add in the mortgage to borrow that money, $10 billion total over the next 30 years, we're going to be delaying or perhaps canceling a whole bunch of other transportation projects our region needs. And if we're going to spend $3.5 billion, which is more than this region has ever spent in its history on a public works project, we should solve the problem. But the day the CRC would open, we'd still have a bottleneck all up and down southbound I-5 that we wouldn't have solved. So, some fundamental principles. Let's not spend money we don't have on something that doesn't work, that will tie our hands for a generation. We can do better than this, and I hope we stop spending millions before we commit to a multi-billion-dollar mistake.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Also from the Oregon State Legislature, we have Lou Frederick.
Thank you.
Hello there. My issues are, I'm not going to deal with the spending issue. I'm going to deal with a very simple couple of questions. If we do something regarding this particular area, it does not affect the issues of health and asthma and other particulates that are just south of this, just outside of this particular area. If it's not going to be done well, we're going to end up with more traffic and more pollution in my community, and that's not okay. I want some answers on how we're going to deal with that particular issue, as well as how we get freight and other traffic back and forth and across this particular river. Those questions have not been answered to my satisfaction. I'm waiting for those answers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lou. And we have now from the private sector, Chris Gerard, the CEO of Plaid Pantry.
Good morning. I looked at this primarily from a business perspective, a finance perspective, and I can tell you that the current finance plan is a disaster waiting to happen for the taxpayers of Oregon. As was said before, not a single source of funding, not the tolling, not the federal funds, Washington state contribution, is going to come in anywhere near or at the timing that's projected by the project. And what that means is that Oregon is going to be on the hook. We're being asked to go first with an open-ended commitment for not just $450 million, but for cost overruns, funding shortfalls, and it's a generational load on the taxpayers and our kids. We're close to getting stuck. My fear is we get to a point of no return and somebody says, well, we spent so much, we got to press on. But we're not there yet. There's still time for our legislators to have a look at this and look at some of the other alternatives that cost less and we can afford. Thank you very much.
Okay, next speaker is Evan Manville from the Coalition for Livable Future. Right here.
Thanks, Carl. Coalition for a Livable Future is an organization of over 100 organizations. It's a coalition of 100 organizations. And our concern with this project is it's an homage to the 1950s. It's a highway mega project we could have designed a long time ago before generations of knowledge taught us how to do things better. If we're spending $4 billion, maybe $10 billion in the long run on this project, we need to get it right, because this project's going to be 100 years, and this is the legacy we're going to leave to our future. So it needs to be a responsible project with our climate responsibilities, with the health of communities, with creating full transportation choices, and helping the whole region. The current plan is not that. Let's take the time to get it right.
Thank you, Evan. Now to show that this is not just all the liberals from Portland, we have John Charles of the Cascade Policy Institute.
Thank you. Thank you. I share many of the criticisms of the previous speakers about the lack of financing and the fact that will not solve a congestion problem. However, I was also asked this morning to talk about the problems with the light rail component of it, and as much as I enjoy using transit, I even enjoy using rail when it works properly. This particular scheme is actually designed to make things worse. Right now, C-TRAN of Vancouver operates 5 express bus lines and 3 limited stop bus lines from Vancouver to Portland, and during the peak period, the average time of travel on the express buses is about 18 minutes. So under this plan, if we spend $321 million a mile in construction for a 2.9-mile extension, by the time we do all that, the estimated travel time on the train will be 38 minutes to Portland, more than 100% longer than the express buses operating today, which not only offer premium service, they offer premium fares, about 60% of the operating costs of the express buses are paid for by users, which is more than double the fare recovery at TriMet. So if the goal here is to enhance transit, this does the exact opposite at a massive cost, far more than any other train ever built in the history of the state. So it's just wrong. And our mayor in Portland has said, well, if there's no rail, then there's no project. I'm fine with that. Kill the rail part, and there's no project. Start over, start with something that would actually work. And I have some prepared remarks. Their copies are over there. Thank you.
Okay, Brad Perkins from Perkins Realty.
Good morning. I am also running for Metro District 5, and that covers the North Portland area. So it's a very important issue regarding North Portland that we're all concerned about. The CRC, as planned, is estimated to cost $3.6 billion to what Joe Courtwright probably more fairly estimates of being, when all costs are over, about $10 billion. This is too much. This is something that we cannot afford. Now, the state of Washington Department of Transportation has come out and stated that there is a need for a new rail bridge across the Columbia River. As we look down on the left-hand side, or you can see it. We have worked out a plan as an alternative that can build a multi-purpose bridge right next to the freight rail bridge that would include 4 lanes of cars and trucks above, 4 tracks for rapid transit, commuter rail across the river, as well as high-speed rail to Seattle and Vancouver, BC, as well as 2 tracks for freight. Okay, this can all work. Now, what it's going to take is money from the private sector as well as the public sector. And this is an option that could occur for this type of bridge. We can seismically upgrade the existing bridge. We've got 6 lanes there, 4 lanes down the road, and we have a project that can help get people rapid transit from Vancouver to the Rose Corridor in 7 minutes. Okay? And this would serve the ports a lot better as well. They'd be directly associated with the new bridge. Okay? And serve Hayden Island. Okay, so if we combine both these 2 bridges together, we seismically upgrade this to last another 100 years. We've got a project that can save hundreds of billions of dollars. Okay? So I hope that we can look at that as a possibility, because this will be the sustainable project that makes a lot more sense and remove congestion and still have a lot of jobs for our economy. We need to plan and study for other alternatives. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Our next speaker then is also talking about another bridge, which is Sharon Nassett from Third Bridge Now.
Thank you very much for coming. It's a really important issue to our area. Third Bridge Now is a new freeway, heavy rail from downtown Vancouver to downtown Portland, including our ports, removing freight and congestion from several neighborhoods in Oregon and Washington while strengthening our economy. Imagine Portland without 405. Ugly. Just ugly. We do not have to put up with congestion. It's drain on the economy and it's damagement to our environment, our health. Now imagine 405 with a 305. Wow, how wonderful. A 305, a bypass going into our ports and industrial areas and avoiding our neighborhoods and providing us with a 21st century economy-driven freeway. Now take that vision and hold it in your mind and work hard for a 305. We have the right to have something that works for us, and we should be working for something that will give us jobs in the future. Third Bridge now will do that. A second point, our chairman is out ill today. He had a medical emergency last night. And I was to remind you that there is information table. The speakers will be able to stand around and speak afterwards, and you may ask some questions. We are not going to necessarily state who are members of our committee because of the political climate at the moment. Rivergate. Do you know where Rivergate is? It's out on the end of the peninsula. Would you walk from the Expo Center to Rivergate? That's the light rail station for Rivergate. It is also the light rail station for Jubitz. Would you walk from Delta Park at the Park and Ride to any of the businesses on Columbia Boulevard? That's what they say, service it. Service is only supposed to be a half a mile. Those doors are several miles away. Downtown Portland is rated as having high amount of transit. These areas are considered to be low and moderate. So thank you very much, and enjoy the day and envision something better than what has been proposed.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. I'm sorry we have to keep this moving, but there'll be plenty of opportunity for people to speak at the end and talk more about their various views. We have then next Tiffany Couch, who's a forensic auditor, to talk about where her information about where the money has gone and where it is going.
Good morning. My name is Tiffany Couch. I am a certified public accountant and a certified fraud examiner and a former governmental auditor. I have uncovered significant questionable accounting transactions and practices as they relate to the Columbia River crossing. Transactions that I believe are significant enough for legislators and other officials in Oregon and Washington to take notice of and investigate further. But I'm only one expert. The significance of my findings should be put into perspective with the significance of findings of other experts. We have economists, bridge designers, engineers, and transportation experts who've risked their professional reputations and their very livelihoods to come forward and talk about the significant issues with this project. And we urge you today to take notice of the preponderance of this evidence and to stop and call a timeout to this project before billions of taxpayer dollars are spent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tiffany. And Joe Courtwright from Impressa has been studying this project for years, and he's an economist with good information.
Thank you and good morning. After 7 years and more than $130 million of spending, the Columbia River Crossing project still lacks a sound financial plan. In fact, the project will cost upwards of $10 billion to the region over the next 30 years when you add in the costs of the construction, the interest, the toll collection, and the other projects that this project would necessitate. Neither Oregon nor Washington show any inclination to raise gas taxes by the approximate $1 billion that would be needed initially, and both states would be liable for any cost overruns. ODOT's current largest projects have each gone more than 100% over budget, and in the case of this project, that works out to billions of dollars. And finally, this project's finances are based on wildly inaccurate forecasts of traffic over I-5. Already the traffic is 17,000 vehicles per day below forecasts, and tolling would drive those numbers even lower. This is not a financially viable project. It puts an extreme liability on both Oregon and Washington for revenue shortfalls and cost overruns. It deserves a very close second look.
Okay, Representative Jefferson Smith couldn't be with us today, but his father is, and he'd like to distribute some information on behalf of the representative.
Actually, I want to distribute information on behalf of Ron Buell, who would have been kind of running this show, except that yesterday a kidney stone didn't make it. So he's dealing with that today. Jefferson would have liked to have been here. He had to be in New York today, and it was difficult to make both appointments. But he points out the accuracy of all of the facts and figures you've heard today, stressing that this group is not saying this is the one or this is the one and this is the one. What we are saying is that ain't the one, and there are at least 3 better alternatives that need to be looked at before this behemoth puts us into a financial hole we may never get out of. Thanks very much for coming. Would every member of the press please get a thing of one of Ron Buell's things, which I'll put on the table, which has all kinds of information you'll find very useful. Thanks for coming.
Okay, I'm going on my list to Gerald Fox. Oh, I'm sorry. Take my pants off.
My name is Gerald Fox. I'm a retired transportation engineer. I've been following the Columbia River crossing with a growing sense of dismay and foreboding for a number of years. It seems it's all about the DOTs wanting to build a big new bridge, keep themselves employed for the next 8 years, instead of accomplishing the purpose and need originally set out for this project in a manner that's appropriate to the needs of the 21st century. Awash in public money, this project is still attempting to overwhelm decision makers in a blizzard of hype and misinformation. Consider, it won't actually improve travel in the so-called trade corridor because that traffic is already routed down I-205. And it will continue to be after this bridge is built because there will be no more capacity on I-5 through Portland. It won't relieve traffic congestion because, as I mentioned, I-5 is already full. You've only got to listen to the daily traffic reports to realize that the entire Portland freeway network is fairly congested, and adding more traffic from the north will worsen it for everybody. The only thing that adds capacity is the light rail component to the project, which they very cunningly embedded in the freeway, and they tell us, well, you can't have transit improvements unless you have this mega bridge. Well, that's not true. It also violates 30 years of regional transportation policies that have been geared towards encouraging transportation alternatives. The bike path on this bridge is a hoax, sandwiched in with 10 lanes of traffic, as opposed to being located in a more friendly bike environment. It will suck up all of the discretionary transportation funds by both Oregon and Washington, denying dozens of projects, smaller safety and traffic capacity projects throughout these states from funding, all to build this bridge that doesn't actually meet its purpose and need. It won't help trucks because they too will be stuck in this traffic. And it won't provide many jobs because it demolishes almost as many businesses as the jobs required to build a new bridge. It's long past time that we looked at doing this project in a more appropriate manner. Thank you.
Okay, next Floyd Smith from AORTA, which is Association of Rail and Transit Advocates.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm Floyd Smith, AORTA, Oregon Association of Rail and Transit Advocates, and a member of the Smarter Bridge Committee. I am not an economist. I am not a CPA, but I can do the math. And regarding jobs, which I have studied as closely as I can, the numbers are not there. I've asked CRC staff to give me the foundational data from which I can back into these numbers on job creation, and I've yet to hear back. I'm hopeful, but they aren't there so far. You'll find in the FEIS and in the cost of congestion study fairly dramatic numbers of job creation and job loss of around 1,000, just under 1,000 jobs taken from 69 businesses on Hayden Island and in Vancouver area. I'm asking to see how they came to those numbers and to parallel earlier comments from Joe Courtwright and Tiffany. We want to see the numbers, we want to see the data, and because so much of the argumentation for building this bridge is based on job creation. And people have serious doubt about those numbers. Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Jim Howell. There he is. Okay.
Hello, I'm also with the Aorta. I'd like to talk about some alternatives that were thrown out early on in this process. Back in 1906, commuter rail was eliminated as one of the components of this attempt. As you can see, down there downriver is the railroad bridge, and they said, well, that railroad bridge couldn't handle commuter rail, and therefore we're not going to look further at commuter rail. Well, obviously it can, if you've seen how slow the trains cross there. But what is going to be needed within the decade is a new railroad bridge for high-speed rail. Up in Washington, the federal government has given them $780 million so far for high-speed rail. And it stops in Vancouver. It doesn't go on into Portland because no one has done any plans for how to get across that river. Obviously, you're not going to do it on those old bridges. That's not high speed. If you saw those freight trains going across there, they're obviously not high speed. That's where there should be some real study done, and it hasn't been done. Thank you.
The last person on my list is a representative of the neighborhoods associations. I didn't have a name. Not here. Okay, well then I'd like to thank all the people who came to listen to us on a cold morning, and thank all of our speakers. I think the message today is that the current direction is not a wise or sustainable direction. We've got to call a halt to the further spending on this project. The committee of the legislature will be meeting next week. They've told me they're not taking public testimony in their next meeting, but after that they'll take public testimony, and so we need to be watching this developments very closely. There will be opportunities for people to meet with our various speakers, and we thank you all for coming.
Does anybody have questions of anybody here before we let them go? If you have a question, this is your chance. You can direct it to anybody behind me or over there. Okay, thanks again for coming. And do pick up one of Ron Buell's handouts, and I promise to deliver handouts to folks who didn't show. So when you come and get yours, if you tell me where you're from, I'll know where I have to be delivering stuff this afternoon.